For April Fool's pranks, how far is too far? Faking a life-threatening natural disaster? Convincing the police an alien invasion is underway? Nearly starting a war? Well, I'm here to tell you that line is crossed all the time, in ways so extreme they'll leave your jaw on the floor. So let's take a look at some of the best and worst April Fool's pranks that went too far. Prankageddon. On a cold April morning back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, otherwise known as 1974, residents of Sitka, an Alaskan city just 15 miles west of Mount Edgecumbe, awoke to see a column of black smoke rising from the dormant volcano. The volcano, which last erupted 4,000 years ago, looked like it was waking up. Understandably, residents panicked. As the black smoke rose, the local radio stations and police were hit with waves of calls. The Coast Guard commander on watch called the admiral in nearby Juneau, who ordered a helicopter to investigate while everyone else got ready for a state of emergency. As the chopper flew closer to the stirring giant, the pilot noticed something etched into the snow. Was it an SOS? Was someone trying to warn the city? No. When they got closer, the words April Fool became crystal clear. It was all a prank. A massive one at that. You see, 50-year-old prank connoisseur Oliver Porky Bicker woke up on April Fools and chose violence. Armed with 100 tires, rags, highly flammable sterno jelly, diesel, and smoke bombs, he hired a helicopter and ascended to the 1,300-foot summit. There, he yeeted the tires into the crater and set them ablaze. And just before leaving, he stomped April Fool into the snow in giant 50-foot letters. You may be wondering, did Porky face consequences for this? And the answer, surprisingly, is no. Because it turned out Porky had informed the police and aviation authority about the prank beforehand, and they were on board. The only folks he'd forgotten to clue in were the Coast Guard, though they eventually took the prank in good stride too. But while Bicker's tall tale got laughs all around, the same can't be said for another volcanic prank that happened a few years later. In 1980, the Boston-based Channel 7 News got a naughty idea. Using out-of-context audio clips of President Carter and the governor of Massachusetts describing a serious situation, alongside stock footage of lava, Channel 7 News reported that Mount Milton, otherwise known as the Great Blue Hill, had erupted. The town took the bait and frenzied. Local authorities were inundated with calls from frantic citizens, with one man even carrying his sick wife out into the street, frightened that their house was going to be swallowed by lava. What was intended as a small prank had turned into Prankageddon. Channel 7 quickly apologized, and after an investigation, the prank was officially found to have gone too far, and the executive producer was thrown into a real volcano. No, I'm only joking. He was just fired. Dreams crushed on camera. On a lazy April morning in Houston, Texas, one unsuspecting man was about to experience the wildest emotional roller coaster of his life. His wife bought him some scratch cards and sat back to enjoy the show.
He thinks he's bad. He thinks he's gonna win.
Babe.
What happened?
Look, man.
What happened?
It's $5,000, man, for real.
You lie.
Man, I put that on everything, man. Look. $5,000 tickets, man.
One win wasn't enough. Wifey had to turn up the heat.
$5,000, dude. What the?
Oh, look, this one says $10,000.
Oh my God. Come on, babe.
Look,
we got.
for real. Look.
Oh my God.
I show 100.
She really had him hooked now. Convinced he'd won $15,000, he grabbed his keys and headed for the car, ready to cash in. When his wife finally dropped the bombshell.
Babe, you're gonna get mad at me.
What?
I broke more, man. You still broke.
The what?
It's April Fool. You still broke. It's fake, babe. I'm sorry. They're fake tickets.
Man, why you gotta play like that with me, man?
Fake scratch cards. Ouch. You can see his heart break as he stands in silence for what must have felt like an eternity. Can we get F's in the chat for this, Fallen King? Taking a prank too far is a matter of opinion, but this one feels a little too cruel. You know what's not cruel, though? Hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Go on, make me feel like I just won the lottery. Alright, now let's get back to it, you golden ticket, you! War's no joke. Pranks aren't limited to private individuals. Sometimes massive organizations, including intelligence agencies, get involved with April Fools, to absolutely disastrous effect. It was 1986 when an officer working for the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad reported an assassination attempt on Nabi Berri, the Lebanese Minister of Justice. After the prankster spread the information via internal comms and radio, the Israeli defense minister jumped into action right away, fearing the assassination attempt could be pinned on Israel and spark a war. Defense Minister Yitzhak Rabin interrupted a session of the Parliament's Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee and announced the alarming news. Only a few minutes later, Rabin discovered it was an April Fool's prank and told the lawmakers, but the damage was already done. It spread like wildfire. Sources on Israeli radio broadcast the report for 2 hours before finally ceasing transmission and issuing corrections. 2 Lebanese radio stations also picked up the story. The Lebanese government didn't find the entire fiasco funny, describing it as a sick joke. Gotta say, I'm not really seeing the punchline with this one. Just seems wildly irresponsible and a little evil to me. As a result of their gag, the intelligence officer responsible was sentenced to 35 days in jail for an April Fool's prank that could have sparked live combat. Jackass. Intergalactic gags. Every prankster dreams of coming up with a prank idea that's out of this world, but one Jordanian newspaper may have taken that a bit too literally. In 2010, Al Ghad, a Jordanian newspaper, printed on its front page that UFOs had landed and 10-foot aliens had emerged from it in Al Jafar, a desert town in East Jordan. Residents of Jafar didn't take too kindly to reading the giant gray men had landed nearby, and a citywide panic began. Residents took to the streets ready to battle their new gray overlords. Their mayor even called in security forces to search for the aliens and almost ordered the evacuation of 13,000 citizens. Just as the mayor was preparing for the worst, it was revealed to be a prank. The paper's editor, Moussa Baromeh, later told sources that the story had been blown out of proportion. They just wanted to entertain, not scare. The mayor didn't see it that way and came close to suing the organization before senior staff called him and personally apologized, smoothing things over. Over in the United Kingdom, billionaire Richard Branson decided to pull his own April Fool's prank back in 1989. Branson and friend Don Cameron disguised a hot air balloon as a UFO and took to the skies of southern England. Branson aimed to land in London's Hyde Park, however, due to changing winds, the team had to land their UFO early and ended up bringing it down in a field just shy of the city. As reports of the low-flying UFO spread, the army was put on standby while the police were in hot pursuit. 3 cops arrived at the field and carefully approached the ship with their nightsticks drawn. Suddenly the door opened and Cameron, a man with dwarfism, emerged wearing a silver alien costume while a concealed Richard Branson filled the air with dry ice. The sight terrified the cops, who bravely ran away. Once backup arrived, the ship was surrounded and Cameron and Branson finally revealed it was a prank. Later, one of the cops admitted it was the most frightened he'd been in his 20 years on the force. It's not exactly an everyday thing to get called out to chase ET. Branson was heavily criticized afterwards by Chief Inspector Andrew Nielsen, who feared sightings of the ship could have caused traffic accidents as amazed drivers try to get a better look, not to mention the waste of police resources. I guess you could say that prank was light years ahead of its time. But it turns out people freaking out from fake alien reports is a time-honored tradition. Well, it didn't happen on April 1st, nor was intended as a prank. In 1938, CBS Radio aired a radio drama adaptation of The War of the Worlds. This adaptation of H.G. Wells' sci-fi classic narrated by Orson Welles, no relation, convinced panicked listeners that an alien invasion had started and that New York had been overrun with poison gas.
and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed.
By the end of the broadcast, the studio was full of police and radio executives all wrestling over control of the station. War of the Worlds? More like a war on comedy. Old-timey prankies. April Fool's pranks are nothing new. Researching this video, I've been flipping through newspapers from the 18 and 1900s, and it's pretty easy to see how much folks loved a good prank back then. Take this copy of the Baltimore Sun from 1912 that was running a competition to find the best April Fool's pranks. Among the recipients of a whopping prize of a whole $1 was the young J. Milton Winner. The ironically named winner claimed that when he was 9, he tricked his mom into eating a piece of spicy red pepper candy. It didn't take her long to figure it out, of course, and she responded by angrily ordering Winner to grab some potatoes from the pantry. Just as he stepped in, she slammed the door and locked him inside, yelling, "April Fools! That's what you get for fooling your mother." She then left him in there long enough to miss dinner and to go to bed hungry. Maybe we're too soft these days, but locking a 9-year-old in a cupboard for hours sounds like a prank that's gone slightly too far. From the same 1912 Baltimore Sun comes the story of 15-year-old Anna Rosenberg. Anna had always dreamed of owning a copy of Oliver Twist. She begged for it constantly, but times were tough and money was tight. Then one day on, you guessed it, April 1st, her dad surprised her with a beautifully wrapped present. He told her it was her favorite book, and Anna quickly tore off the wrapping paper. Just as she lifted the cover, it exploded in her face, scaring her half to death. Her prankalicious dad had put a small firework inside a hollowed-out book rigged to explode upon opening, along with a card that read, "April Fools." A classic Looney Tunes-style prank from a different time. April Fool's pranks were so common back in the early 20th century that in 1922 it led to a woman's demise. On April 1st that year, a professional cook in Catford, England caught fire while working and screamed for help, but her colleagues, assuming her cries were merely an April Fool's prank, ignored her. The woman was eventually consumed by the flames, and her tragic tale stands as a warning today. But our old-timey prank disasters aren't over yet. This next one comes from an 1894 issue of the Wood County Reporter. On April 2nd that year, in the little town of Buena Vista, Wisconsin, one Mrs. Lyman Smith awoke and fetched some water from the well. After giving her young daughter, her lodger, and herself a drink, she noticed something strange. The water had turned a light hue of green. The authorities were called in and found a sack at the bottom of the well containing 2 pounds of Paris green powder. Paris green was first made in 1814 as a paint that blessed countless canvases for 50 years until people realized one tiny little flaw. It was horrendously toxic. The paint had high levels of arsenic and kept poisoning factory workers, making production pretty expensive. Accepting their paint might not be right for the job, in 1867 Paris green was rebranded as the world's first chemical insecticide. So it's safe to say when 2 pounds of the stuff were found at the bottom of the well, it was taken very seriously. While the diabolical individual responsible was never caught, the fact that their deed had seemingly been done on the night of April 1st suggested they may have had either a seriously twisted sense of humor or were incredibly ignorant of the severity. Though, of course, the date could have been a coincidence. Fortunately, the well meddling was discovered before anyone met a grim fate, though the mother and daughter did become temporarily ill. If it was indeed a prank, it might just be the dumbest one of all time. Pranksplosive. Prank calls are one of the most classic pranks in existence. From asking if the refrigerator is running to putting on a funny voice, prank calls can be a harmless bit of fun until they're not. In Larnaca, Cyprus, 4 locations were evacuated after some ominous phone calls put authorities on high alert. On April 1st, 2019, a bomb threat was called into Larnaca International Airport. Around the same time, 2 nearby malls received email warnings of suspicious items. Then later that evening, a nearby casino also received a bomb threat. The airport, malls, and casino were of course evacuated, and bomb squads showed up to search for devices, but fortunately, nothing was found. Authorities later suspected they had fallen for an extreme April Fool's prank. No one was ever officially charged for the activities, but if his history of outrageously inappropriate pranks is anything to go by, it was probably Logan Paul. Ticket to Prankadice. As we've all seen, news organizations have a soft spot for spreading fake news in the name of a good prank. British newspaper The Times is no different. Back in 1972, Times journalist John Carter published a curious story about Thomas Cook, a British travel agency celebrating its 100th anniversary. Carter thought it'd be a funny April Fool's prank to advertise a Thomas Cook luxury around-the-world trip for the same price it would have cost a century earlier, 210 guineas, about $260 today. Soon, lines began forming outside Thomas Cook offices all over the UK, with people eager to grab this incredible deal. As you can imagine, it only went one way from there. When folks found out they'd been totally deceived, excitement quickly turned to anger. As infuriated phone calls poured into the newspaper and travel agency alike, John Carter was fired for causing a nationwide uproar. I guess you could say he bought himself a one-way ticket to Unemployedville. Delightfully devilish. The best April Fool's pranks are harmless, funny, and simple. More importantly, they don't require someone else spending an entire day cleaning up. The pranksters from Siegel High School, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, didn't get that memo. In the dead of night, a group of seniors snuck into their school and laid out hundreds of paper cups half filled with water through the corridors. The next morning, janitors, teachers, and students were stunned and supremely frustrated. Great prank, sure, but not for whoever had to clean it up. Similarly, the two little pranksters up next use a smaller version of this prank on their grandpa, filling his office with toys.
Can you believe it? There are stuffed animals and dolls everywhere.
Pretty adorable prank. Of course, Papa wanted to get them back.
And it looked like there was something in your room.
I'm scared.
It smelled like poop in here, I thought.
Oh no, Duncan! He pooped on my bed!
Ah yes, the classic fake poop prank. Unfortunately, Kiddo didn't take it too well.
It's not real poop. Hey, it's not real poop. Look. Look. It's pretend poop. Papa got you, April Fools. Papa did this. It's pretend. He got you. Oh, honey.
But after some calming down, it was all good fun.
You got me, Papa. We'll get you next time. You got me, Papa. We got you next time.
Sometimes the simplest pranks are the best, like this toilet air horn prank. Harmless, funny, and beautifully simple. I guess you could say it strikes the perfect note. Probably not the worst noise to come out of that restroom either. Want an even simpler and more effective prank? Put a pair of boots somewhere they shouldn't be and make it look like someone's stuck. No, boss, I haven't seen Tony. He said he was going to sunbathe on the road. Why'd you ask? Bad comedic timing. Heading back to England now, the BBC has built quite a reputation as a prankster over the years, and one of their best was pulled back in 1980. The BBC World Service, an international radio station, announced that London's Big Ben was getting rebranded as Digital Dave to make it easier for tourists to read the time. Along with its new digital look, the tower would broadcast 5-minute news bulletins every evening, and the famous bell chimes would be replaced with beeps. Pretty cool, right? The announcer also claimed the clock's hands would be given away to the first callers. One eager Japanese seaman in the middle of the Atlantic somehow called in, but the joke was on him. It was all a prank, one that will definitely stand the test of time. Decades earlier in 1957, the BBC aired a mockumentary about spaghetti trees. The mockumentary showed a Swiss family harvesting spaghetti after a mild winter. They then cut over to Italy to report on the blooming spaghetti plantations, which were enjoying a particularly good year thanks to the disappearance of the infamous spaghetti weevil. Afterwards, the BBC reportedly received hundreds of calls from curious viewers asking how to grow spaghetti trees, and they were all told to place a sprig of spaghetti in a tin of tomato sauce and hope for the best. I tried growing lasagna once, but the planting process was too complicated. There were just too many layers. The web's original pranksters. In 1999, a group of online pranksters carried out a masterclass of deception upon the naive users of the newly popular internet. The crew built webnode.com and made it look like a government-approved website. The front page proudly displayed a Business Wire branded press release announcing a state-backed initiative to raise $4 billion to create the next generation internet. It promised much faster speeds and explained that they'd raise the money by selling 40 million internet nodes at $100 each. In reality, an internet node is anything connected to the internet like a computer, a PlayStation, or a printer. But back in 1999, Google had only just publicly launched and computer literacy was low. So people were easily fooled by impressive and legitimate-sounding tech terms like internet node, which they knew little about the actual definitions of. The WebNode website looked legit, and it was being positively mentioned on trusted financial forums like the Silicon Investor. The only clue that it was fake? The press release was dated, you guessed it, April 1st. Even so, the pranksters received 1,400 emails within the first couple of hours. By 24 hours, it had gotten so out of hand, the team were forced to reveal it was all a prank. Business Wire, the company featured on the fake press release, demanded they remove everything. The pranksters then simply changed the header on the release from Business Wire to Business Wire. Cute. Business Wire wasn't having any of it though. They called the FBI and sued the team for fraud. In the end, Business Wire won $27,500 in damages, and the pranksters, Janice Schell, Jeffrey Mitchell, and William Ulrich, had to remove any section of their website that Business Wire didn't like. But why did they do it? Well, surprisingly, it was actually kind of a noble idea. The pranksters wanted to teach the public that you can't trust everything you read online. William Ulrich claimed his parents were scammed when he was a kid, and so he felt passionately about stopping it from happening to anyone else, in a time where stock price inflating online scams were rife. Not like that happens anymore nowadays, right? Right? Pranktastic TV. On April Fool's Day, TVs go from simple boxes of viewing pleasure to weapons of prank destruction. Idaho journalist Nathan Larson was grocery shopping that day in 2019 when he received this surprising text from his wife. Their TV was smashed. Badly. Oof. When Nathan got home, he was greeted and led to the TV by his 4-year-old who confessed to launching a Transformer toy at the screen. However, his wife, not exactly a natural prankster, burst out laughing, and once Nathan looked closer, he realized the TV was just playing a fake broken screen video. Unfortunately, the prank had already had some pretty significant financial impacts because Nathan had purchased a new TV on his way home. Oopsie. But for a really successful TV prank, who better for the job than a major TV company? LG has a flair for using their realistic screens for some fiendishly clever pranks. For example, the time they made an advert by convincing unwitting folks the elevator floor was collapsing beneath their feet. Or when they staged a fake job interview where they terrified participants into thinking a meteor was about to hit Earth.
Bueno, principalmente...
¿Tuvo algún problema llegar acá ahora?
No.
Estamos un poquito acá.
Madre.
Perfecto. Aquí están las... ¿Sí? Ah, perfecto.
Mire.
¿Hay alguien? ¡Don César!
Alright, I'm pretty sure that was just a totally staged piece of marketing from top to bottom, but please, if anyone with the means to do so is watching, make that asteroid prank a reality. Permanent prank. In the early 2000s, California-based radio station KORB announced a competition. Anyone who tattooed the rock station's 93 Rock logo on their forehead and came down to the station would win $100,000. Sure enough, father-stepson duo David Winkleman and Richard Goddard pounced on the opportunity. Without checking the small print, they sprinted to a tattoo parlor and got inked. After a few agonizing hours, they emerged with the logos permanently etched into their foreheads. Excited, they ran to the station only to find out the contest was a prank. It was all just a joke designed to entertain listeners. The gullible father and son sued, but unfortunately and perhaps unjustly, both cases were quickly dismissed. The case was even dramatized in the binge-worthy TV show Personal Injury Court, albeit with an even funnier acronym. What a cruddy situation. This is Emily. Emily is trapped behind a wall of duct tape because she's the lucky daughter of Wild Man Phil. As Emily Slad Phil covered her doorway with a maximum security prison of tape, trapping her inside.
Run into it, not push into it.
After a struggle, she manages to clear her way out while Phil watches laughing. The look in her eyes says it all. She's had enough of her dad's antics. If this is what Wild Man Phil gets up to on April Fools, I'd love to see him team up with Jonathan Harchick, a tape prankster from Pittsburgh. While this didn't happen on April Fool's Day, Jonathan showed his commitment to pranking by covering his parents' house at 60 miles worth of tape. Man, his parents must dread April 1st like it's the day of reckoning. Pranked palpitations. Glenn Howlett was a senior manager for London City Hall, Canada. Like any other hard-working human, Glenn decided it was time he and his wife took a holiday, so he booked some well-earned time off. But Glenny boy couldn't just enjoy his vacation in Alberta now, could he? Nope, no rest for the wicked. In the middle of his getaway, Glenn received an unwelcome email. The deadline for a major project he'd been working on had been moved up. When he read the email, he panicked. He'd been working on the report for ages, so missing the deadline wasn't an option. His blood pressure shot through the roof as he cut his holiday short and hurried back to work. Glenn was so stressed that he even experienced heart palpitations and fell ill. Finally, Glenn made it back to work ready to sacrifice his very health for that deadline, only to have the rug pulled out from under him. It was all a prank. One of Glenn's co-workers, a high-level city manager, thought it'd be hilarious to pull a little prankaroo on him. It wasn't. Glenn's holiday was completely ruined, all for one man's pursuit of comedy. The prank was considered so extreme that Glenn sued and won an early retirement package. To top it all off, the city then banned pranks altogether. Great job, idiot, ruining innocent, lighthearted pranks for the rest of your colleagues. A life without pranks? That's no life at all! What's the most outrageous April Fool's prank you've ever witnessed or done for yourself? Let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for watching, Amazians.